Something I get asked quite often is what characters would you want to see in a LEGO Harry Potter minifigure series 3? Who do you want? And I'm sorry to say, but I just don't think we're ever going to get one. Now, LEGO Harry Potter is really interesting considering it is one of very few licensed themes that have actually had their own minifigure series, let alone two. The only other one that I can think of is Disney. I mean, The Simpsons also did exist, but then again, that only had two standalone D2C sets and doesn't continue year after year. Disney, on the other hand, does continue on every year. However, they don't actually focus on minifigures. Until the recent release of Mickey and Friends, like the 4+ line, they didn't really do anything like that. And even then, those minifigures do not resemble the minifigures that we saw in the first two Disney series. Harry Potter, on the other hand, is a staple LEGO theme at this point. I mean, it has cemented itself as one of the best-selling themes year after year and continues to have an ever-expanding range. Now, originally in 2018, LEGO released the LEGO Harry Potter minifigures Series 1 to go alongside with both the Fantastic Beasts and Harry Potter theme that was releasing that year. And to me, I thought that was an amazing idea at the time. That is really what got me back into buying LEGO, because it was so cheap and accessible that I felt like I could buy the entire minifigure wave and I wouldn't be sinking too much money into it. Then after I bought all those minifigures, I ended up buying the Great Haul. So clearly this strategy on LEGO's behalf worked. Now, the minifigure series was fantastic as well because it expanded upon the range of minifigures that came alongside the sets. You also got some amazingly detailed Fantastic Beast minifigures, which look fantastic, but I'm not really going to reference them all too much in this video. I'm really just going to focus on the Harry Potter side of the Wizarding World series. Now, to me, looking back, the best thing about that original series was getting mid-legs. They were only in that series for quite a little while, actually, and they are definitely one of the best pieces that we got out of that entire thing. It was fantastic. For me as well, another thing that I loved to see was finally getting some robe prints. That's something we'd never seen before. Again, it has continued on and we have seen it again in other sets. However, they are different variations of those prints. My favorite though, and it always has been Dean Thomas's print with the Hogwarts house scarves. I love that. I really hope that those make a return. And we get to see them in a bunch of different colors because it's really unfortunate only having Gryffindor. Another one of the great things about it though is that it included a bunch of characters from a lot of the different movies that we really weren't seeing in the wave at the time. It had a ton of variety. There was a lot of really great detail, and a lot of these were really versatile and really basic minifigures. However, that mindset and that concept has actually turned around and sort of bit itself in the butt when looking back at this series from 2022. Now, the Harry Potter theme being brought back was an amazing success for LEGO. They had a lot of people wanting those sets and buying all of those sets, and I was one of those people. It really got me back into the hobby, and I hadn't had that much fun collecting and buying LEGO in a very long time, ever since I was a lot younger. Also, now that I was an adult, I had my own money, so it was a lot easier for me to sort of go and sort of buy these things because I didn't have to constantly ask my parents if I was allowed to. And of course, these series expanded so much, and they also had a lot of success with that first minifigure series, that a second one came out in 2020, and this one was vastly different. It focused a lot more on like different variations of the characters, which personally I think is a much better route considering that this is a theme that has annual releases year after year, which is very unique when it comes to a CMF. The only other theme that has had a minifigure series that has sort of sets releasing year after year has been Marvel, and I think the big difference between Marvel and the Harry Potter series is that Marvel really homed in on something that they weren't really gonna make sets on, and I think that is why that Marvel series is a real standout overall. Because for example, in Harry Potter season 2, there was a minifigure of Dumbledore, and while I love this minifigure, I think it's fantastic and it was honestly one of my favorites of that series, Dumbledore in that outfit has been something we've gotten before. The real appeal for him was getting a nice printed skirt piece, having that beautiful head mold, and of course Fawkes the Phoenix, which has since popped up in sets. However, if you look back at the Marvel series, you get things like Captain America, and I do think he will be remade when his new movie comes out, but considering how often Marvel switches up costumes, he's not going to look the same as this. Also, getting White Vision from WandaVision was fantastic. Thanos as Gamora, and let alone Zombie Hunter Spider-Man from What If. I feel like these are a lot harder to put in a set. Gamora as Thanos, not so much. However, LEGO has made it very clear that they are not going to be making sets on these TV shows anytime soon, so putting all of these characters inside a CMF series was perfect for that. Whereas Harry Potter, a lot of these minifigures could just show up in sets. Now, I'm very grateful at the fact that we've had two amazing CMFs. However, especially I look back at the first series and there's just not that much that remains special or unique about it, which in turn is good for any new fans as they don't feel like you have to go back and buy all these minifigures. But it also makes me look look back at that year and think, you know, maybe it was sort of a waste, especially to do the second series when we could have had one from another theme or just another license in general as a sort of one-off thing. I think this issue as well could lend itself to Star Wars, so if Star Wars ever do a CMF, it'll be really interesting to see the route that they take. I certainly think that going the Marvel route is a lot better. Like, do some characters from the Clone Wars or Rebels or Andor or The Mandalorian or Ahsoka or literally any of the Disney Plus shows that you're probably not going to make sets on, just like a one-off. Like, you could do a young Count Dooku, you could do Yaddle, you could have the fish lady from The Mandalorian. Like, there are a lot of options there, and I really feel like that's what Harry Potter should have done. However, because the universe isn't quite as expensive, it's not growing like Marvel and Star Wars are, I feel like they sort of trapped themselves in this corner, and I think that's very reflective as well in season 2. And that is the reason why I don't think we're getting a series 3 at all. I look back at series 1, a majority of these minifigures have been remade, or their parts just aren't useful or exclusive anymore. Like, a lot of these characters have different variations. You didn't need to go and buy the CMF because it's going to be included in a set you've probably already got. In fact, looking back at series 1, I wrote down and I had a look at some of the minifigures that we have that didn't actually get a remake, and the first one up is Draco in his Quidditch outfit. However, this one I think is quite debatable considering the Quidditch pitch set came out that very same year. It had the torsos, it had capes, you could just get like some white short legs and take the head off your Draco minifigure from the Great Hall and stick it on there, and you would have got him. The Golden Snitch also wasn't special, so I kind of don't want to count Draco. Dean Thomas, again with the scarf prints. We did get a Dean Thomas in Hogsmeade, however, he wasn't in his Hogwarts uniform, and those scarves have not appeared in that way, shape, or form since. I also wrote down Voldemort, but I feel like he's sort of similar to Draco. I mean, we haven't had him in his green sort of dress and outfit from like the Deathly Hallows. However, we have had versions of Voldemort that, I mean, I don't think Voldemort really counts again. Cedric, of course, and I don't think we're going to get another Cedric. I think Cedric really was like a CMF item, and for him, I think that variation was perfect. Flitwick as well, I can see him reappearing though in that sort of like later design of him in the future. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. Harry in his pajamas, I put him on there because like technically the torso and legs are special, even though they have brought back the invisibility cloak. And then lastly as well is the blue Dumbledore, which at some point I'm sure they're gonna have to bring him back. He's such a prominent character that as we start getting into the later movies a little bit more, I feel like it's gonna be just too hard not to have him in the sets. Series 2, however, we did a little bit better because we went a little bit more niche and very like sort of specific to different outfits, which personally, looking back, I love. I didn't really like it at the time, but I think I appreciate it a lot more now. So the figures that remain still exclusive to that series are, of course, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, Lily, and James, which again, like Cedric, was the perfect place to put them in. There's also Luna with her lion head. We also have Ginny, Fred, George, and Bellatrix. The rest of the minifigures, though, all got remade. Neville was in the Defense book, Sprout was in the Herbology book, Kingsley was in Grimmauld Place, and Moaning Myrtle was in the most recent Advent calendar. So it really doesn't make those minifigures feel very special. Yes, they are definitely a lot more detailed. In Kingsley's case, that minifigure is far superior than Grimmauld Place, but it definitely makes the series feel a little bit more wasteful in the grand scheme of things. And because Harry Potter is pretty limited in terms of, I guess, like what we haven't gotten and what you can do, a third series to me doesn't make much sense at all. The only character that really stands out that I feel like would be perfect for a CMF is Rita Skeeter, and I know that a lot of people as well were thinking that she could have been in series 2. I mean, I was one of them. I think series 2 for her would have been perfect. Like, you could have swapped out Professor Sprout, or you could have swapped out, I feel like Neville specifically. Like, I loved the Monster Book of Monsters, but he was such a wasteful spot. Rita Skeeter would have made so much more sense. She would have taken advantage of the sort of like new molds and new printing aspect that a lot of CMFs do with that extra detail, and it would have paid off. She doesn't really blend into too many sets all too well, considering she was a background character for most of the Goblet of Fire. However, she's a character that a lot of people know and recognize, and I really hope that she does get turned into minifigure form someday. Besides her though, there aren't really many standouts. I mean, you could do a couple of different people's outfits, but I don't think that many outfits are going to be that recognizable outside of the Deathly Hallows outfits, which should appear in a Deathly Hallows set. I mean, I wouldn't put it past LEGO for those outfits to show up in the upcoming Room of Requirements set that is based off the Deathly Hallows Part 2. So putting them in a CMF Series 3 doesn't make sense. And also, if they did a Series 3, we all know that a Harry, Ron, and Hermione have to appear at some point point. Like they just do that. Same deal with like the Ninjago movie. They put like all of the ninja in and that took up most of the slots for that. It just feels like a major waste of a year's CMF slot. Like I would much rather have like one-off things like the Muppets and Looney Tunes and more stuff like that, as well as getting a Star Wars Disney Plus shows one. I would love to see that. I think that would be really cool. And I know we're getting Disney Series 3 next year, but even I guess Disney Series 4, bringing them back, like I'm really excited for Disney Series 3, and I think that is a theme that really benefits from getting a CMF series. But ones that have regular releases, unless you're doing something like Marvel, it just doesn't make sense. A lot of these minifigures can just be put in the sets, and that is exactly what Lego is doing as well. So spending the money on these CMF series for Lego and even just as a consumer doesn't make much sense at the end of the day, and I just don't see it happening. Again, as a big Harry Potter fan, I'm very grateful that we've gotten 2 CMF series and also just all of the sets that we've gotten over the last few years, and I'm very thankful for especially that first series for just getting me back into the hobby. But in saying that, I don't want a third one. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think there are great character selections left for it. I would much rather just see these minifigures appear in regular retail sets and give that CMF slot to a different license, or even just for Lego to do their own thing again. I don't think Harry Potter needs it at all, and I think the designers hopefully can see that just by looking at, I guess, how they're going about releasing sets and how they've gone about redoing characters with the last 2 series. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think they will think it's worth it. So if you did have your hopes up about a Harry Potter Series 3, I would probably lower your expectations, because to me at least, it just does not make sense. But let me know your thoughts on this topic, and also what other minifigures, if they did a Series 3, would you think that they would put in it? For me, like I can only think of Rita Skeeter and maybe the Carrows from Deathly Hallows or Aberforth or something like that, but also I can see Aberforth being included in a set. The Carrows maybe not so much, or the Snatchers or things like that, but I really feel like our options are somewhat limited. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel down below, and until next time guys, I'll see you later.